morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Netgear. Today's host is Jordan Cooper, and he is their Territory Account Manager for California and Texas, and will be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Jordan will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Jordan, I am finished for now. Please go ahead and take it on over.
Wonderful. Thanks, Julie. Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jordan Cooper, and like Julie had introduced, I am the Territory Account Manager over here at Netgear. We cover California, Texas, and technically Hawaii. Still waiting for them to send me to Hawaii, though, to help get that, build that state there. But real quick before we begin, I just want to preface that I am not an engineer per se with Netgear, but I do have a love for the technology, and the love that I have for it has driven my passion to learn as much as I possibly can while I am striving to become an engineer. So I like to say that I know enough to be dangerous and to break things, but so keep your questions. I'll answer as best as I possibly can. If there are any that I'm not sure of, I can let you know, and I can take it offline to an engineer and pass out the information as it needs be. So let's kind of get right into it. So on today's agenda, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking a little bit about Netgear and a little bit about our history. We're going to talk briefly about what makes Netgear different. We will then kind of talk about some extenders, because that will come into a play, especially with our Orbi Pro. And then that's when we'll talk about our Orbi Home and our Orbi Pro. And then after that, we'll just, like Julie said, we will open it up to some questions at that time. And if I've done a few of these webinars before, so some of these things may look a little bit familiar. If you've seen these before, if this is your first time, welcome, and hopefully you learn some great new things. So I won't go through necessarily every individual PowerPoint bullet here. I don't believe in death by PowerPoint, but some things that I do like to point out is, Netgear last year we did roughly about 1.26 billion in revenue with a little over 1,000 employees. I like to kind of show this slide for one primarily purpose, is to show that Netgear is big enough to make an impact on the market and to do some amazing and incredible things, while also being very lean in that marketplace, with doing it with just a little over 1,000 employees. And being lean and being big enough in the market allows us to be a lot more affordable. And I like to also kind of say we're big enough to matter, but small enough to care, especially for our small to medium businesses. Okay, we'll talk about the Netgear differences here for a second. When somebody asks me what makes Netgear different compared to all the other manufacturers out there, I like to point out these three things. Netgear really wants to be all three of those three things. There are some companies that have one or two of these things, but very few, we feel, have all three. The first one is obviously reliability. We like to have at least a 5-year warranty on majority of our products, but even a lot of our products also have a limited lifetime warranty with a next business day replacement. And we also have a great tech support that you can have the option to talk to if you needed it. Nice part about that too as well is our tech support is not required, so you don't have to buy any type of licenses to be able to talk to our tech support. We also are affordable. We want to make sure that we are the best case for the small to medium business companies out there, or businesses who are larger who may have a small to medium business type budget. I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with working with companies like that, where the budget's really, really tight. They want a Chardonnay on a Coors Light budget. So we like to be a great place for a good one-stop shop for all your networking needs and make it really affordable. And then finally, we want to be easy to use. We don't want to require any training or any type of certifications that you have to do to understand how our products work. You don't need to be some high-level engineer, have your CCIE to know how to operate our devices, whether it's going to be through a GUI, or whether it's going to be through a CLI, or whether it's going to be remote managed through an app or through a desktop. So keep that in mind when you are thinking of Netgear. What makes Netgear different? These three things. And like I said, very few companies out there have all three of these, but a lot of them have one or two of these, just not all three. Okay, so we'll talk briefly about an extender. I'm sure most of you probably know what an extender is and how it works, but for those who don't, or those who just would like a quick, good refresher, extenders are honestly on a way of the past now, and there are very, very few reasons why somebody would still possibly need an extender today, because they have been replaced by the mesh, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But let's talk about extenders for a minute, and what are some of the biggest drawbacks to an extender. It does, first off, create a different network. Not a lot of people know that. People think it just takes my current Wi-Fi and broadcasts it out. It does, but you have to have a separate SSID. You can still name it the same name as your Wi-Fi and same password as your Wi-Fi. However, that will not make a seamless transition. And the biggest problem is you only join if you lose 100% of the signal on the router or manually disconnect from the router. Can't tell you how many times that I'm talking to somebody and they're saying, I am right by my extender. Why am I not picking up? Why am I not getting good signal? It says I have 1 bar. I think my extender's broken. In the case of it's not, it's that you're still in range of the router. And at the end of the day, the biggest problem is with these is the router and the extender, they don't communicate with each other. And that's what a lot of people wanted them to do. And in order to make that happen, there was a lot of things that had to do behind the scenes. That's when controllers had to be coming into play and all those good things. But technology has progressed and allowed us to be able to have a communication between the router and the satellites and all the extenders and all those good stuff. In fact, it was funny. Just the other day, I went to Walmart. I was picking up some Cat 6A cabling from my Walmart so I could plug them into my switch. And I was talking to somebody who I had bumped into, and they were looking at getting a range extender. And he was just like, my Wi-Fi sucks in this area of the house. I said, well, what do you do on the other side of the house? He goes, oh, I game. And he goes, and I'm like, okay, well, if you're a gamer, then it's definitely something that I wouldn't recommend getting a range extender. And we kind of talked about the pros and cons, and we did a great education session. And he's like, you just saved me a bunch of time and a bunch of hassle of getting a range extender. And I pushed him towards the Orbi. And many of you know the Orbi. I feel like it's became a very common name with Netgear. You know, there are some names that when you say Netgear, you think of probably our Orbi, you think of our Nighthawks, you probably even think of Arlo back when Netgear had Arlo. Even though Arlo is completely separate now and is not affiliated with Netgear at this time, but Netgear still has the Nighthawk and the Orbis, which are still very well commonly known house brands. And the Orbi Home was a big game changer for a lot of cases because this was the solution to a lot of Wi-Fi problems. First off, it's super easy to set up. I don't know if you've ever set up an Orbi if you had a chance, but those who have, I sure can also back me up when I say that it is super easy. Behind the router and behind the satellite are little sync buttons. Once you set up your Orbi Home, it is set up through an app called Orbi, free app, and that saves you from having to go into a GUI. And you can go and set up your Wi-Fi name, set up your password, see your devices connected, do speed tests, and all those kind of cool stuff. But once you have the Wi-Fi set up, you'll go and you can go and take a look and see where you feel you're going to need a better coverage. Take your cell phone, say, "Ooh, I dropped down to 2 bars, or maybe I dropped down to 1 bar. This is where I want to place my satellite." You plug in the satellite into the wall, you click the sync button, you walk back over to the Orbi router, and you click that sync button, and give it a couple of minutes, and boom, it is synced, and they're speaking to each other. And because they're speaking to each other, it does mesh. Now, mesh can mean a lot more things, but for simplicity's sake, we're going to be talking about, when we talk about mesh, we'll just be talking about the seamless roaming or the fast roaming, the seamless handoff between the satellites and the router. And notice we're calling them satellites and not access points. Satellites indicate that you have to have a router that will make the satellites work together and be the meshing system. Whereas an access point is just an access point. It can work with any router, right? So this was our Orbi Home. It gained a lot of popularity. A lot of people loved it. And we started to notice that a lot of people were actually using it and putting it into their business. And this quickly gave us the idea of taking the Orbi and all the great features that the Orbi has and putting it into a business solution. And the business solution is going to have some differences, or have some more business class features that most businesses want to see. And so that's how the Orbi Pro were born. That's how these were born. Now, you see two on your screen. These are Wi-Fi 6 Orbis, and we'll talk about both of these options. Back when Orbi Pro originally came out with AC or Wi-Fi 5, we had pretty much one main Orbi, and then we decided to kind of make them and just make different capabilities and different total bandwidths and things like that, make it a little bit different so you have different options as far as affordability goes. But for this sake and for this presentation, we're going to be talking about the Orbi Pros that are pertaining to specifically Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 is the greatest and latest, as we all know. And if you haven't seen any of Netgear's Wi-Fi 6 or what makes Netgear different with the Wi-Fi 6, I did do a presentation on that as well. You feel free to go to YouTube and you can type in Netgear Microcom and you can see all the presentations that I did and where we talked about the Wi-Fi 6 stuff. So let's talk about the Orbi Pro differences, right? Like I said, it has a lot of the feature sets that the Orbi Home has. So the Orbi Pro does have the Orbi app that if you wanted to download, it does have the still super simple setup. It still, of course, does the mesh, but there are some more features that it does, some better features, specifically more for businesses and tuned more for those guys. There's some faster speeds. Speeds oftentimes for businesses is the name of the game, especially with businesses who have servers and they need super fast connectivity to their servers. The home, not so much. There's still some super fast stuff for the home, but the biggest factor for home, most homes don't have servers or a lot of local traffic. And because of that, they're all still going to be limited to the internet provider. Businesses, on the other hand, we do see a lot more on the server side and a lot more LAN traffic. So these have faster speeds, and we'll talk more in depth about that faster speeds here in a moment. 150 total devices. This is just a rough number. When I say 150 total devices, those are tablets, laptops, cell phones, desktops. It's really anything that kind of connects to it. Some might look at that and say it is a low number, a lower number. Some might look at that and say, oh wow, that's a great number. In my opinion, I feel that's a good amount of numbers. It can do more. It just depends, as we all know. There's no hard set number on how many devices can connect to a network. It's common knowledge that the more devices that are connected on a network, the slower it'll be. So if you have 300, 400, 500 devices connecting onto a network, I would expect you would see some performance issues. But the 150 is a good amount of devices where you can still maintain some great speeds. It is more secure. I mean, our Orbi Pros do have the option to have an IPsec VPN, a site-to-site or a client-to-site VPN. This is great for those people who are doing the work from home and want to have, your login information or certain websites that are only available for the local traffic from the office. This is a fantastic option as well, too. Being with it secure, it does have VLAN capability where you can set up to 4 VLANs on the router side. That's just, we're not talking about switches here, we're on the actual router itself. Does do 4 DHCP scopes. If you know what that is, great. If you don't, we won't go in, due to time's sake, we won't talk too much about that, but it does have that capability. And it does have the captive portal, or a splash page is what some people refer to it as. If you don't know what that is, that's where if you go to McDonald's and you go to connect to their guest Wi-Fi, it pops up some terms and conditions that you just got to read through and accept the conditions in order to join the network. So I have an Orbi Pro at my house just because I love to have the Orbi Pro because of the speeds mostly. But I do also have a captive portal on my Wi-Fi, and it's pretty funny. I have it since it's just only my friends and family who really log on to my Wi-Fi. I have it where when you go to my guest Wi-Fi, it says, hey, by joining this network, you agree to mow my lawn and agree to make my family dinner every night. Just something kind of ridiculous just for laughs, but it does have that ability. And it does have the Insight managed option. Insight is a remote management software that's more in-depth than the Orbi. Orbi is a great monitoring app. You can kind of just look and see what's kind of going on at a very high level, or just kind of, good general overview, tip of the iceberg, if you will. Whereas the Insight, that's going to open up everything that's going to be usually you would do on the GUI, right? That's where setting up the VLANs and setting up if you want to do a different DHCP or setting up those type of things, looking at your topology and all that good stuff. That has that option, whereas the Orbi Home does not. The Orbi can only be managed via the Orbi app. And with the Orbi, I want to say, preface two, the Insight, that remote management software is an option. It is not required. It is a license that you would have to purchase every so often through the app, every once a year, or every 3 or 5 years, depending on your choosing. But if you want to know more about the Insight and what the capabilities are, I also did a webinar on the Insight, which is super fantastic. Go check it out on YouTube if you haven't checked it out already, or even if you have seen it and you just want a refresher. If you're not doing remote management, get into remote management. It's a great moneymaker. If you like the remote manageability with who you have now, take a look at Netgear. I challenge you to take a look at Netgear because it's been around for about 4 years and it's gone through a refining fire. It's gone through what most people who manage networks like to see and things that they don't want with some other competitors. And we take kind of the best of both worlds. So go check it out, but it does have that option to do. And then finally, it does have a good large amount of coverage. You can have 7 satellites plus 1 router, which will be up to about 24,000 square feet of coverage. That 7 satellites is not necessarily a hard definite number, just like the 150 total devices is not a hard set number. It's a rough estimate. If you add more, you can expect a decrease in kind of some performance. So that's kind of the optimal right there. Okay, so let's talk about the Mini. And I apologize if this picture is a little bit blurry. I tried my best to blow it up a little bit bigger. Let's talk about the Orbi Mini. So this is the smaller than our standard Orbi Pro. It is about 2,000 square feet of coverage per unit. Still the same amount of number of satellites. You can still do the same amount, the 7 plus 1. And it is the dual band. Technically, it's dual band, but it can do meshing with a tri-band as well by using that. Instead of using a third and having a third line, it uses the current 5 and splits it and uses the 5 and some of it towards the backhaul and some of it towards using it towards basing. Number of concurrent users is 40. So this concurrent users is, I want to preface, is high drawing bandwidth devices. You know, these are like your 4K, 8K TVs, things like that. If you're just doing your basic surfing, it can probably do up to about 100 devices, but 40 is for a good solid, everybody on it, everybody doing something that's high draw for the devices. And then it is more affordable than our standard Orbi, and that's kind of why we made it. So it's still super awesome, still super fast, but it does have those kind of limitations as far as coverage and number of concurrent users. So we'll talk about our big bad boy then, the main Orbi Pro. This is what you may see oftentimes. You may see ads or things like that on occasion. I know I do, probably because I search it a lot. But let's talk about the differences between this Orbi Pro. There were so many differences that I couldn't fit it all on this screen, so we're going to kind of talk about it right here. So first off, this is going to be a dedicated tri-band. You're going to have a 2.4 on the 5, another 2.4 on the 5, and a 1.2 gigs on the 2.4, which I just want to say blows my mind that we're in a technology day now where Wi-Fi on the 2.4 network is faster than gig speed. Just blows my mind. Super awesome. This does about the 3,000 square feet of coverage per unit. And the coverage I want to preface too as well, this isn't best case scenario. This is your standard case scenario. I know some companies out there kind of do push it to its multiple as much as it possibly can and then say that's what it can do, kind of giving you a false sense of what it really can do. The 3,000 square feet of coverage and the 2,000 on the Orbi Mini is in a standard office, has been tested and has been tested in a standard office environment. You know, your sheetrock walls and your basic stuff. As soon as you start introducing brick, stone, metal, concrete, things like that, of course you're going to go down. But it's a good estimated amount for a standard office. The number of concurrent users jumps up to 80. Again, that's high drawing devices. Normal devices, normal surfing, you're looking at 150 to 200 devices, but high drawing devices, it can do about 80. This is where this does have the ability to do an IPsec VPN. The Orbi Pro Mini currently does not. Sure, it's in the pipeline to do, but as of right now, the Orbi Pro, the main Orbi Pro does do the VPN capability, site-to-site VPN. The Orbi Pro does also have a multi-gig WAN port and multi-gig LAN ports, 2.5 on the WAN and 2.5 on the LAN ports on the satellites. So super awesome there. You can get some super great speed if you connect them via all, a Cat 6, Cat 6A cabling. You are getting multi-gig speed, and it is still affordable. That's one of the, like I said, that's one of Netgear's biggest proudest moments, is we want to be affordable to everybody. So in the end, we take what the Orbi Home has of easy to use, reliable. We make that into the Orbi Pro, make it super awesome, have some great feature sets for businesses. And I urge you guys to try it out. Go and look up the reviews. Let the reviews speak for itself. It is fantastic and super amazing. Okay, well, Julie, that's all that I have. I think we should open it up to some questions.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for that wonderful presentation. And I definitely have some questions for you. Let's get started with the first one. Is the Orbi Home cloud managed?
So cloud managed, as in it does come with the Orbi app, and the Orbi app can be opened and managed anywhere in the world. When you say manage, it depends on what you define as managed. If you're talking about managing, like doing VLANs and QoS and doing that kind of stuff, no, it doesn't have that ability to be actually like managed in that case. But it does have. I don't like to use the term. Does it have a cloud managed? It has a cloud monitoring. And monitoring is kind of, in my opinion, a better word, because yes, you can see what's on your network. You can do Wi-Fi speed tests. You can, see how's your overall network coverage and those kind of good things in that case. See your Wi-Fi name. So if that maybe answers the question, it's more, the Orbi Home is more managed remotely, or not managed, it's monitored remotely.
Thank you, Jordan, for those distinctions. It's very good information. Thank you so much. Next question here for you. How many Orbi Home Max connections can be connected to each other?
So if you're talking about how many Orbi Home satellites, you're probably going to be looking at 5 or 6, probably max. Which, in my opinion, I mean, it's still, if you're at 2,000 square feet, you're talking about a 10,000 square feet home. So if that's the question you're asking, how many satellites can be connected, that's probably where you want to be. Again, there's no set hard number of how many you can have. If let's say if you have 5 and you're like, hey, I've got to add one more, is it going to not work? It'll work. If you have 6 and you want to add one more, will it not work? It'll work. But you're just the more satellites you add, just keep in the back of your mind, the more satellites you add, the less better the performance will be.
Thank you, Jordan. This next question may be similar to the one you just answered for us, so let's make sure here. How many networks can I manage with one account?
So that is different. If we're talking about the Orbi Pro and how many networks you can manage, it's not so much about the Orbi Pro. It's going to be about the remote management software, which is what Insight is. Insight, there are 2 subscriptions. There's a premium and there's a pro. Premium will allow you to manage multiple locations for one business. I have premium at my house because I only manage my house. But if I were to manage my buddies, I could put it at my buddy's house. But if I wanted to manage businesses, you probably want to go with the pro. The pro is not available to purchase through the app. It needs to be purchased through a company like Microcom. And the Pro allows you to have the multi-tenancy capability where you can manage multiple locations with multiple different businesses of the multiple locations. So if you manage a McDonald's and a Walmart and a Carl's Jr., you can click on the company and then pull up all of their locations that you manage and then click on which location. And they're really right there. There's not a hard set number. I mean, if I were to put it anywhere, it's probably near 1,000, but not many people are pushing that kind of number. So if that answers that question, how many networks can you manage? It's not so much the Orbi, it's more about the Insight, and the Insight you can do probably around 1,000.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jordan. Next question here for you. Is Orbi 3x3 or 4x4 MIMO?
So it is MU-MIMO. Great, excellent question.
Oh,
Depends on which Orbi you're going to go with, but it is Moon Mimo, and they are a 4x4, so it's like you can do like I think it's like 16, 12 or 16 streams. So it has both a 3x3 and a 4x4.
thank you so much for that. Next question. Does the Orbi Pro also support or have a 5-year warranty?
Yes, the Orbi Pro is a 5-year warranty on the Orbi Pro for the hardware.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question. Does the Orbi Pro and Mini support PoE?
The Orbis are not PoE capable as of right now. When we had an AC Orbi, we did have a ceiling mount, so that one was specifically AC. But as of right now, none of the satellites right now can be powered via PoE for the Orbi.
Got it. Thank you. A couple more questions here for you. Next one. Are Orbi devices compatible with all ISP providers? If not, which ones are not compatible with them?
So the Orbi Pro is just, remember, it's just a router and satellites. With knowing that your internet provider is going to be whoever they use for a modem. That's the biggest factor. You have to have some sort of modem. So I would say the answer to that question is Orbi Pro should work with every internet provider because every network has to have a router of some sort. And to have a router, that's the very basics. The internet provider more cares about the modem. Not all modems will work with all internet providers. For instance, cable modems won't work with fiber or DSL modems. So that's where you want to worry more of. Once you have whatever modem works for your internet provider, the Orbi will work with whatever modem you have. Any modem, you just plug in an Ethernet cable from your modem to the Orbi Pro, and you should have no problems.
Thank you, Jordan. This next question seems to be related to the one you just answered. Here it is. Do you have any Orbi device that acts as a modem and a router in one?
Great question. With the Orbi Home, we did. It was on the Wi-Fi 5 Orbi Home. So you possibly can search up, it was a cable modem. So if you went to Google and searched in Orbi cable modem, you would pull that up. With the current Orbis that we have, and then with the Pro and with the Wi-Fi 6 Orbi homes, right now we do not have a cable or a modem and a router combined for Orbi.
Thank you, Jordan. Earlier, you mentioned talking to tech support. Can you tell us the easiest way to reach out to talk to your tech support team?
Yeah. So when you buy through Microcom, because Microcom is an authorized partner, all of your devices that you get will automatically come with 90 days free tech support. And that's by calling 888 Netgear. Super easy number to remember, 888 Netgear. After that 90 days, though, you do have the option to purchase more tech support if you feel like you needed it. That's Microcom can also give you some great pricing on the tech support. It's called Pro Support. And the Pro Support is what you can do if you need to call a tech support and have some help with, hey, I need help setting up a VLAN or I'm having troubles with this or that. That's where Pro Support comes into hand, and you have an option of purchasing it a 1 year, a 3 year, or a 5 year Pro Support. Microcom can get you some pricings and get you hooked up with that as well too.
Excellent. And yes, we can help customers with that. Thank you for mentioning it, Jordan. Next question here, rather last question. Can you give us an overview about where Netgear products are manufactured?
So most of Netgear's products, I should say, were manufactured in China. So unfortunately, we are affected by the chip shortage, but good news is our Orbi lines, we had them produced so heavily that we still have a good amount of stock on them. So, but right now, most of our products are manufactured in China, but we are working on kind of spreading that out and being a little bit more diverse in putting in options into like Singapore and Taiwan, Vietnam, and those countries as well too. So we're not just so heavily focused on China. I think we all learned a lot of the manufacturers learned the lesson that when you put all your eggs in one basket and have them all manufactured in China, China goes down, you go down, and you don't want to do that as a business. So to answer that question, right now I'd still say probably like 80% of our product is manufactured in China, but we are working on getting other products manufactured in different countries, like I mentioned.
Thank you, Jordan, for sharing that valuable information with us. And yes, very interesting. So thank you for that. And thank you for answering all of the questions for us today. And thanks to everyone for joining today's webinar. And if anyone still has any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep, or you can email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And also, remember, this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again and always be able to access this information we had for you today. Jordan, thank you so much for your time and all of this valuable information. We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, you have a fantastic day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.